Okay, everybody, this is Charles Blair, the mad scientist, and I am so happy that each and every one of you have decided to spend your Monday morning with us. Now, as you can see right now, you're seeing the meeting Zoom screen right now because Jack is having some technical difficulty with his video. However, that's not going to stop us. We're going to keep on trucking along on this process. So we're not going to be able to see Jack this morning, but you will be able to hear him. So that's all that matters because the information is powerful. This information will take you to a whole way of thinking, and I like to say, like a transaction engineer, thinking outside of the box. So, for those of you who are on the broadcast, give me a big up. Let me know that you guys are hearing us loud and clear. So, all you guys on Facebook, I want you guys to let me know. Let me know if you're on Facebook, you can hear me. Let me know if you're looking or listening on YouTube, if you can hear me. I want you guys to really consume this information you're getting today. It's going to be that powerful. Now, let's get this thing started. We know that real estate investing can take you to directions that you may not even know is possible. And that's exactly what we have in store for you today. My guest is someone that I have followed, learned, and has been my mentor over the years, going down to Florida, listening to his workshops he would have with Jack Miller, Peter Fortunato, and so on. And with that, I'd like to personally thank you guys for tuning in to hear Mr. Jack, Mr. King, Mr. All Around Real Estate Investor Duru, Jack Shea. Tell everybody, Jack. The pleasure is all mine, Jack. I just want to make sure everybody is on this broadcast. Are you listening? Are you hearing this message? If you can hear me, like it up, heart it up, comment it up. I want to make sure you guys is going to get this information because it is definitely going to be powerful. Now, Jack, do me a favor, my friend. Tell everybody exactly who you are and why they should be listening to you today. Mm-hmm. So for you, Jack, a can't is a challenge to go ahead and make it happen. Of course.
Fortunate to have attorneys like law book on trust as a friend and partner, and I check stuff out at the tax code and law book. So anyway, had options, and there's another approach for tenants. That's part B or the second part of the book, but they can be used for property, for personal property, mobile homes, mortgages, sales contracts. I've optioned mobile homes,
Mm-hmm.
so that's personal property use. But I like the lack of risk, Charles. There's things a friend of mine, Jim, said the other night in a meeting. What about lead-based paint or sinkholes? Or the people shoot each other and say, I'm not the guy. If it goes down in value like '07, like they did, I'm not the guy. If it goes up in value, I'm the guy.
Got you, got you. Now, I want to first of all thank you guys for tuning in. Sean Phillips says, "Welcome, Jack." Uh, Kwan says, "Can hear you loud and clear." Dwayne McCall joined the broadcast. Thank you, Dwayne, for being on the broadcast. On YouTube, we got Al on the broadcast. Thank you very much for being on the broadcast. Jack, one of the basic questions you have about options is, what is an option? Give us your 105-foot view of exactly what is an option.
Well, the legal definition, Charles, is you purchase right, you purchase the option to hold the price open for a period of time, and you pay money for that. It changes a contract to a unilateral contract instead of a bilateral. So I can exercise or not exercise. You have committed to sell for that price for 6 months, and I can take it or not take it. So it's a unilateral contract, and most of them, 90 some percent, but I have left a few. I have walked away from a few where I'd auction anything. I'd go buy at Tony Knotts, and if there was a house there, I didn't slow down very much. But sometimes I found it was not desirable or had bad neighbors, and few cases the street was busy. So I passed on a few options, but it was the most profitable thing to do. I didn't own it. Had enough rough years. So I like the unilateral contract, and then after these risks of the such thing as lead-based paint and radon and sinkholes and flood zones and stuff, they're kind of unknown possibilities. Look at the flooding that's going on now. I see a lot of houses knee deep in water.
Jack, hold on for 1 second. People are saying they're unable to hear you. Let me check the actual process and see where we at with that, because people are saying they can't hear you. So give me 1 second to get this straightened out for you on this end. Okay, guys. Let's see. Go ahead and say something, Jack.
Want to crank up the audio? Is it louder or louder on my end? Can you hear me, Charles?
I can hear you, but people were saying that we're unable to hear you. Let's see if we could try one more thing. Okay, let's see. Listening. Okay, let's try this again, guys. Jack, go ahead and say something. Let me know, guys, if you can hear Jack right now.
Charles, I'm covering the features and benefits. Is that any better?
Okay, can you guys hear Jack, what he just got finished said about covering the features and benefits? Let's see. Let's go ahead and Jack. Yeah, they're still saying they can't hear you.
Yep. I cranked up my volume a little bit, Charles. That make any difference? I'm want to make sure they understand or hear enough to get the right.
Yeah, people are saying they're unable to hear you on your side. Um,
Not at all.
Not at all. They're not hearing you at all. I'm hearing you loud and clear, but they're not hearing you. Let me try one more thing. Let me try one more thing. Go ahead and say something.
I'm hoping that they can capture what we're trying to convey.
I just made a change. Can you hear us now? Go ahead, Jack. Say something, my friend.
Okay, we want to have people get a good handle on what we're talking. Excuse me. That what we're talking about. Is that coming any better?
I think it is. I think people should be able to hear you now. Yep, they're saying I can hear us now. Gary's saying he can hear. So we are good to go. So let's go ahead, Jack, because I'm not sure how much people heard. Let's start this over again with my first question. Or should I say, let's start it over again, Jack, with exactly who is Jack Shea, and we'll take it from that point. Tell us right now, again, who is Jack Shea, just for those of you who weren't able to hear the early part of the broadcast.
Well, I'm a real estate investor that started buying properties in the early 80s. I would say optioning. I would go to meetings and say, I will buy your properties. I didn't quite mean buy, but I had had several option seminars from Jack Miller and books. And I thought the high leverage, low risk uh, portion of options appealed to me, and I didn't have much cash. And later, when I did, I still kept doing options, including my home. So it's been the main part of my business. I had like 60 some option packages, and it's been very good to me over the long haul. Some in the crash in 07, some people lost a lot of money. I lost very little because I didn't own the places. So I like the high leverage, 25 or 50 to 1, a low risk. Options can't be attached. They can't be sued. You can't be sued, but people can't get to your option contracts. They're a future interest, and they can't be liened or attached. So for all the vagaries in real estate, like lead-based paint and sinkholes and flood zones and all that, it's difficult to see around corners and predict everything that's going to happen in real estate, and we've all seen ups and downs. So it's been a big boon to me. And after about 5 years, I figured out how I could depreciate property that I didn't own.
Right.
So I wasn't a title holder, and that's I got that. I got the tax, real estate tax deductions. I got the interest deductions, and I got the annual depreciation, and that's by being the equitable title holder. Charles, you don't have to be the record title holder, as long as you have the burdens and responsibilities of ownership. You're entitled to all those benefits. So that's been a big boon. Sheltered almost all my cash flow on many houses for many years. And you won't find that information anywhere else.
I agree with you 100% because when you first started talking about it years ago, and even till this day, very few people has the in-depth knowledge of exactly what options is. And for those of you on the broadcast, Sandy, welcome to the broadcast. Manuel, thank you for being on this broadcast. Henry, I appreciate being on the broadcast. Pastor Al from YouTube, thank you for being on the broadcast. Dwayne, Sean, Carl, thank you for being on the broadcast. You guys make sure you put those questions down there. I know you're going to be in for a treat when you get all this information that Jack is going to be sharing with you right now. Jack, for those who are out there right now that are brand new to the subject of options, let people know exactly what is an option when we talk about optioning with real estate investing.
Charles, you pay for the right that you're the optionor. You're going to give me an option. I'm the optionee, and you're going to hold the price on a property for 3 months or 6 months or a defined period of time and hold that price. Uh, and I can close or not close. So it makes a unilateral contract. It means I can act. You've already determined your side. So in 90 some percent of the cases, I closed, and a few I didn't close. So you buy a future a price at a future time for a period of time, and it's very solid in the law, Charles. There's thousands of uses of options and contracts and sports and stock market. Options are very well covered in the law, and they're very difficult to break. And what I found out is I gave all my tenants options, and we got better behavior, a little higher rents. People liked it, and then a tenant didn't pay, and I called Mark Ward, who was my attorney. He said, "Well, throw him out." I said, "I did, but he's getting an attorney." And so we went to court, and the judge said, "You can't evict this tenant who has an option. It's a title right in the law, and you must do a foreclosure." And Mark and I looked at each other. We do. It's like 1985. I tend to do stuff and then get the seminar later. So we didn't know that part of it. So I had to do 8-month foreclosure and $10,000. So I invented a workaround for tenant options. It's a fatal mistake to give a tenant an option. So I have a virtual option. Looks like an option, but it's not really an option. So I could still evict people. So that was an expensive seminar, but it's still my favorite way of doing business. And the tenants do like even the virtual option. And in 80 some percent of the cases, they ended up buying the house and credit some of the monthly payment to the down payment and their first, last, and security. So I didn't love any of those houses. I had personally, they were disposable, and I got a higher price. I got higher monthly rents and more stability, but not perfect, Charles. I was led to believe that the tenants with an option, they'll do the maintenance and they'll never leave.
Right.
Well, after 5 years, the reason I wrote this book, after 5 years, I found out what the real story is. The tenants don't do all the maintenance, and they do leave. So I need to correct the record from the myth. It's still good, but it's not perfect, and it's better than just plain rental. People do get invested in the property and the schools. So anyway, but these are people. I say, how do you find those? So I like the minimum risk, low investment, and the not not being liable for some of these problems. But they are not found with realtors or not found in MLS. You have to create them, and I would call people with houses for rent in the local newspaper or Craigslist from with out of town phone number. I knew they
Whoa.
were out of town, and the pleasures of long distance management is that they don't like it, and they've inherited the house. So I'd ask them if they would consider a long term lease,
Gotcha.
3 to 5 years. Oh, they thought I fell out of it, fell from heaven. Yes, we would. So that was the segue into. So then I could take over the maintenance and take over the
I love it.
turnover,
I love
and
it. That's a great segue, man, to ask them up front would they like a tenant for 2 to 3 years. I mean that guys, that's a nugget right there and a half. If you think about that. Think about how you put your foot into that door so you can get that the conversation of options beginning. That's a huge nugget there. Go ahead, continue, Jack.
well, I would say, if I do all this stuff, Fred, 3 years downstream or five, I'd like to have the ability to buy this place. Does that sound fair? I always say, does that sound fair? And people are fair. They say, yeah, that sounds fair. So we'd get a price, which would be today's price. And, 5 years later, the market was usually higher. And, but they were happy. No, nobody of, I don't know how many more, I had 60 some 70 and bought and sold some, but nobody ever tried to undo an option, Charles, or change it. They were happier than I was because they got a payment every month, auto pay, and no drippy faucets and no
Right.
leaks, and they were happier than I was.
I know, and I call that. I use another terminology, master leasing, something that you guys talked about years ago. Now, here's a question that came from Sean. He wants to know: are you able to, or how are you recording these option agreements?
That's a good question. We have a memorandum of option that's signed by Charles, and it's notarized and witnessed, and it's recorded in the courthouse. It's a cloud on the title. You can't go around that. If title companies sometimes they miss an option, it's too bad, but it's still there, and you can't cross over an option or ignore it. It's a very solid legal right, and in most all cases, the other guy was happier than I was, and they honored and some what I tried to build into those purchase contracts, Charles, was some extensions. I'd say, I remember at the time that interest rates were 18%, and everybody says, yeah, they remember that. I said, well, if that happened when my date came up, I'd be dead in the water because the banks weren't loaning. So for a 5,000 payment to principal, I'd like an extension. And most everybody. Then I got one in my home. I got 3 extensions. The guy kept nodding, and after 3 times, 3 extensions, he stopped nodding. So anyway, and then he agreed to 5-year seller carryback financing. So the whole deal went 13 years.
Wow. So
So
on a 13-year option, now I know one of the questions people are going to have is, well, was you worried about the title being not having a clear title or something attaching to the property?
that's a good question. Anything attaching to that property comes behind my option.
Great.
And we also record a mortgage to security option, Charles. We put a not a very large, but a mortgage, and that any problems, judgments or liens get behind my interest.
Nice.
So
Now,
we've thought that out, and then people say, well, they want to cancel out or they want to. No, I've had that seminar. I have a signed deed in a title company by the guy, and I would say to Charles, Charles, if I flake out or get sick or go into a coma, I'm going to record a release of option. I'm going to have that in a file that if I don't show up on the day with the money we agreed to, you just record that the title company and it clears the option off your title. Conversely, we're going to have a deed signed by you
Right.
in case that you are non-compos mentos, and I'm dealing with your son. And he said, I don't think, yeah, I think this house is, what dad was 200. Now it's 350, and I'm not going along with that. Well, we precluded that. The deed signed by Charles in the drawer. I show up with the last 10,000 or whatever it is, and they record the deed. So we don't wait. We've cleared the possibility of downstream headaches ahead of time.
Got you. So, out of all, you've been in the business now for over 35 years. How many options would you guess that you've done on real estate deals?
Over 100. Over 100.
Nice. One of the questions that Sean asks again is, can we put the house in a trust so liens won't attach? And you've explained one way in which you can make sure you don't get liens in regards to the property. Can you put a house in a trust to make sure liens don't attach?
Well, I do all deals that I ever do are in trust, Charles. I mean, Mark Ward and I both grew up in Chicago, where it was the law since 1891. Everything, you couldn't borrow money in Chicago and Illinois unless it was in a trust. And I loan a lot of money, but only if the property's in a trust. And I hold the beneficial interest in my drawer as security. So when the crash happened in '07, I was funding a lot of rehab guys, and they didn't have any reserves. They didn't have money. They weren't collecting money, and I took back 9 properties from 3 rehab guys with 3 cell phone calls. I just called up and said, "Fred, you've been foreclosed. Bring me the keys." I got the beneficial interest in my drawer. So when I loan money, I make the rules, and people, they agree ahead of time. So I don't have to go to court. I've done that year in court for a foreclosure and in a bankruptcy not too long ago. And the guy, every stunt you could think of. I don't want to have that anymore. And so I treat people well. We treat people well. We don't dance them around. Most of my business comes from referrals by being kind to people and treating them squarely, but not have like some of the rehab guys, they were collecting the rents and not paying me. So I just called up in the cell phone and said, you've been foreclosed. Bring me the key. And they brought me the keys. So, but anyway, trust is mandatory in all of my transactions.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily prevent liens from its, but they don't know who's who. If you got the trustee,
Right.
they don't know who the beneficiary is, but it still could attach to the property. So it doesn't avoid liens. It just they don't know who's the party, and that privacy is important, Charles. The tenants can't find out who you are. The bureaucrats, they just, and you don't get any phone calls or salesmen or anybody bothering you with trust. There's nobody to talk to, so they leave you alone. It's quiet. So trust, and with the book, and of course, thousands of people coast to coast do their own land trust.
Right.
Lawyer written documents, you fill in the blank, Charles, Jack, Elm Street, and the legal, and that's it. Takes my wife crank out a deed and a trust in about less than 5 minutes.
Now, when you're talking about options, give people a sense of some of the main elements that you need to have in place to make it an official option agreement.
Yes, there has to be a granting clause in there, Charles, that you grant me an option. That's important from a legal standpoint, and it's in the documents that I didn't invent these myself, or a lawyer written, and they're battle tested. So there's a grant, and you need to define. In that option book, there's a chapter about 6 or 7 pages of court cases on options, And one thing they need is a specific price, not just, of some kind of round number or a method that the price goes up with the CPI or some definable index and a definable term. It can't be open ended. So to make a valid option, it needs a timing, a date, a price, and the parties. And it's pretty simple. But if you, I don't, you don't want to do them with any kind of vague, open-ended stuff because it's not enforceable.
Excellent. Can you give us a number of ways, Jack, in which a person can use options to minimize risk?
Well, uh, have you got a couple days, Charles?
Well, truth be told, I could listen to you for weeks. So I have a couple of days. I'm not so sure about our listeners on the broadcast.
Well, I've got friends or people do an option loan. So they uh, they hold title to the place and they loan money to the borrower, and he has the option to pay him or not. The borrower has the option. So here's the payments and that, and if he doesn't pay, you already have control of the property or title. So there's a option loan. Uh, you can get an option. You have to pay consideration for an option, Charles. You have to pay some kind of money, except in a case if you manage property.
Right.
You can get an option for management. That's an exception. If you manage a property, then you can get a valid option that'll stand up in court. Uh, so you can, with options, you can purchase a property with an option in installment payments. Not only one payment, but you could have a series of payments. So an installment purchase option. Uh, you can have a shared appreciation option where we'll split the upside after 5 years if you need that to sweeten the pot.
Right.
Uh, so the fixer, the loan option, uh, the you can purchase an option and give the seller an option to buy it back from you for a different price. Okay, so you can purchase option back option. So I got a page full of. So as I said, we you can exchange options, Charles. You can say you have
Right.
a equity of 50,000 or some a good number in a property, and you can sell that option to someone else and take the money and do a 1031 exchange. You can buy real estate or you can buy another option.
Nice. Now we're here in Maryland. In Maryland, we have serious issues with lead-based paint. Now, one of the ways that I know we've talked about in the past is how you can use an option to kind of soften the mitigation for lead-based paints. Could you explain that?
Well, mainly, let's stay out of the firing line for somebody thinking about romancing big numbers from you because of lead-based paint. Or the child should not be chewing on the windowsill, but who knows? But if they're looking for a big hit, having this anonymity in a trust, it kind of slows them down
Gotcha.
and cuts the romance down that say, no, that's not going to work here.
Gotcha.
But,
Another great way we've talked about is how options can be used to capture depreciation. Talk about that a little bit.
well, Charles, if you have the burden and responsibilities of ownership, that means you pay the taxes, you do the maintenance, you pay the insurance, you pay the mortgage. That's tantamount to that's the burdens, responsibilities of ownership. If you have those hallmarks, you are rightfully allowed to claim the interest deductions, the insurance deduction, and the depreciation, which is 3.63% a year. So a $100,000 house, that's $3,600 a year. That's about 300 a month, and that's
Mm-hmm.
about the cash flow
Right.
on that type of house. So there, all those houses, almost all the revenue was tax sheltered for me, and I figured that out after about 5 years. And since I'm a dull guy, nobody talks to me. I read the tax code in my spare time. I read the tax law, but no, there's a wealth of information, and that's legal. It's been done, and it makes um, the whole game a little more worthwhile. And the other guy doesn't mind. He's gives it up. I don't leave it unsaid, Charles. You know, it's a we cover it, and uh, and so they don't mind giving it up because it's not much much value to them, and it is to me. So we get that now. The people, if you give me an option, and I say, Charles, I'll pay the mortgage, I'll pay the taxes. You say, no, I want to pay them. What you really want to know is that you're sure they get paid. You don't really physically. I say, Charles, I'm going to give you 2 checks, monthly payments, and if I, in November 15th, if I haven't paid the tax bill on the first day it's due, my option's canceled, and here's the check. So that solves that problem. And I'm going to give you a couple advanced mortgage payments and insurance and tax, and and so that makes you comfortable that you don't want to physically be making the check. You want to make sure they get paid.
Right.
And so when I relieve your worries about that, you're happy that I do it, and you can check online. You could go, banking records and all that. So people, and we've, I say I'm friendly with people that we've done them, and they sometimes, even if I didn't get an extension like in '07 or '08, I call people up and they granted me an extension later for a certain period. So a good relationship with people is important. They're paid on time, and that crash happened, and those things, Florida, the prices went in half, and they eventually recovered. So anyway, this good relationship and an option. After I started seeing the benefits of those, I couldn't. Nobody could talk me into being entitled in something if I had all the benefits and the tax benefits and the growth, the appreciation, the buy down on the mortgage, and I'm I'm not the guy if it blows up or burns down. Charles is the guy. So,
Thank you, Jack. I appreciate that. So, Jack, Marshall asks, what is the difference between being on the deed and having an option on the property?
well, if you're in the deed, uh, you're the owner, and you you can't walk away from it. Having an option, some of these areas or things went downhill. You you just walk in. The most money that you lose is your option money. But if you're on the deed, you sign and you're in the tank for $100,000 or $200,000 mortgage, you're liable for that. So if you take it subject to, maybe not so much, but having the option. Oh, there's no the notoriety, the people looking up. Uh, somebody looks up. I've known investors. They do exchanges. They have 20 some properties or whatever, and they're all in their name and they're in the public records. And this in Florida, the contingency fee attorneys that advertise on the interstates, Morgan and Morgan, they look up Joe Smith. Say, well, 20 proper. We know how we can collect from this guy. They
Yeah.
look up. They look up me. They say nothing. I don't even own my own house. So it takes a little, the fame and fortune. I don't think you need the fame, and some people don't get it. brag about how many properties they own, and that's anyway. It's your choice.
Got you. Now, I want to continue to thank each and every you guys for being on this broadcast. We have Ron on the broadcast. Thank you for being on. Kay says, Jack's very valuable information. Thank you for it. Let's see who else. We got Sean. Thank you for being on the broadcast again. Carmen, Beto, thank you for being on the broadcast. Keep those questions coming, guys. Let's see. Carmen again. Tremaine, thank you for being on the broadcast. On YouTube, we have, let's see, Tanya, thank you for being on the broadcast. Gary Bell, thank you for being on the broadcast. Guys, I mean, you are kicking it right now. Jack, people
Yeah.
are excited. I got a bunch of hand claps. I got if you're enjoying this information, heart it up, like it up, clap it up, because this is some powerful information that Jack is sharing with you guys.
My website, Charles, jackshayrealestate.com.
And you guys see it right underneath the name on the actual placeholder, jackshayrealestate.com. Tell people how they can get a hold of that actual lease book. I don't know. I have a copy of it already. How people can get a hold of you to get that book.
Well, of the whole course videotaped, Charles, all day course, taped 20 some pages of sample documents, the whole. It's just having a document doesn't give the whole story. It doesn't explain the depreciation and some of those second level. The whole course is available, all day class. I'll do document review for people. They can consult. They'll answer questions. Once they're in my tent, they're in my tent. I don't keep score or charge with the lawyer a timer button.
Right.
So I'm not enough investors use options, Charles. It's a lightly more people should be taking advantage of this. It's a slam dunk as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And you know the reason why, Jack. You know why? Because it isn't a sexy subject that most of the so-called gurus understand. And when somebody don't understand something, they either say you can't do it or they don't teach it.
Yeah, you're right about that. Or attorneys like trust, if they don't know about it, they don't like it. They don't know what it is, but they promote LLCs or things which are a poor second choice because it's on the public records and it's in annual fees and annual reports. So
Right.
anyway, Charles, you're right about that. That's a head in the sand thing. But many of my investor friends, coast to coast, are into, and they do their own documents, and sometimes they figure out something that I haven't figured out, and we help each other. So
Absolutely.
notes, and the other thing I want to not forget about is your IRA account. It's the most powerful way to pump up that IRA.
I agree.
50-to-1 leverage, and it's a bleak retirement with the $1,200 a month from Social Security, and you should be doubling and tripling like Gordon Moss, buddy of mine in California. He buys non-performing junior liens, but he's doubling his IRA every year.
Sean asked the question, can you put an option on the house, then sell payments to get cash to create a note?
Okay, put an option on the house and sell the payments?
Yes, sell the payments to get cash or create a note.
Well, you could, the option has value, hopefully, but options increase in value over time. We've been in a long up market with a few dips, but
right.
And then you can sell that. You could sell it on an installment sale,
right?
To take payments, and then complete the contract. You have a contract for option. So people, you write a contract that I'm going to give you this option over time, and at the last payment, you get 100% vested.
Yeah. So absolutely, you can sell the payments that you have on a property that's creating you revenue. You can sell the payments. Yes. Great question, Sean. Thank you for that question. Now, final thing, Jack, is there anything that we haven't covered that you think these people out here right now should know about options before we end this broadcast?
Well, there's one other. I wanted to get the IRA thing in for people to to not pass up on that. It's the best tool for cranking up. There's another strategy, Charles. Are defensive options, is putting options on property as a defensive measure. Are you with me?
Explain.
Makes it less attractive. Make that let's say you give me a really sweetheart option on a property for a very low price and it's recorded. So people aren't going to mess with that property because they're going to get me with the deal. And you and I may, and I might do similar to you as a friend. And so as a defensive strategy, they can be used, and it gets people off the track and puts them in another direction. Say, well, this house is not all that attractive.
Is it a good? Can it be used as a way to make a property seem that it's over leveraged?
Yeah. That's that. It makes it unattractive to that. I can buy that, $300,000 house for $190, for the next 8 years or something. Now, they figured I paid you a lot of money for that, but they're not. They want to get rid of you, then they get me. I don't go away in the deal. I'm still there. So
there you
go. Makes it unattractive, Charles. That's right. Over leverage. Then they're going to look elsewhere.
There you go. Now, guys, I know this half an hour has gone so quick. Jack has given us some fantastic nuggets. Now, we do have the recording for this, so you will have an opportunity to check out the actual rebroadcast of this. Jack, once again, can you tell people how they can reach out to you to get into that mind of Jack Shea for those of you who want to reach out to you?
Well, I have 3 courses on my website. The land trust course, an all-day course. Thousands of people do their own, coast to coast. We have a book that covers all 50 states. And the IRA checkbook. It's got to trust that you can move your IRA money to the corner bank and you have checkbook access. You don't have to go through the custodian. You can make a deal on a Sunday afternoon. And that's a powerful for cranking up your IRA. So these strategies, they work. They're battle. Thousands of people use them, and we're not saying, "Well, I hope try this thing. I hope it works for you." These things work. Yeah, there's no guinea pigs. We're not experimenting with this stuff. I use them all the time. Friends use them. Friends, students, clients, they're all like the same. My students, my clients, and are my friends, and vice versa. So anyway, I'm happy. I appreciate the invitation, Charles. That your people will be happy to help them along. I'm sort of in the end and spend mode, Charles. I got all the houses and more, notes I need. I just don't know where Merle hides the money. She collects all these payments and I get some allowance, for Pete's sake. And so anyway, real estate's been good to me, and I'm trying to pay it forward.
Thank you, Jack. I appreciate it. And the information you've shared today has definitely taken those on this broadcast forward, man. So thank you for paying it forward. Once again, guys, this is Charles Blair with another episode of DURU Interviews. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Take care, and I'll see you guys on the next video.